Hello everyone, and I am about to do the long anticipated interview, which it's probably been the hardest one to pin down for my newsletter ever, and it is with my husband Liam. So welcome Liam, and thank you. I know you really don't want to do this, but I have so many questions because Liam's an electrician. I get so many questions about what life's like as an electrician and a tradie, and yeah, people are always sending me things over, and I just thought there's so much that goes into it and there's so much kind of detail. It's a lot easier just to chat through it with you all. So I've got a load of questions here that have been sent over. I haven't filtered through them or anything yet, so I'll just pick some questions out as we go along, and hopefully Liam will be able to answer and give some useful information to you all. But obviously always bear in mind that this situation is so different for everyone and it's always changing. Like, we've been here nearly 2 years now and things have already changed since we've been here, so take it as a rough guide. Obviously still always do your own research and due diligence just to make sure that you've got like all the information perfectly correct. So I think we'll probably just start. So what did you do back in the UK as an electrician, Liam?
So I was basically a domestic electrician. I did some small commercial, but mainly domestic, really.
Yeah. And you were employed for a while, weren't you? But then before we left, you were self-employed. You'd done a bit of self-employed work.
Yeah, so I was employed for my whole apprenticeship stage through the one company, and then decided to go self-employed like a year and a half out before moving to Australia, just to see what it was like doing it in England before like the end goal to do it in Australia, really. And just save a little bit more money.
Yeah, yeah. And it went really well, wasn't it? It was a really successful business.
Yeah, it's really good.
To be fair. That was really good. And then, so now you moved over here, so what, because you've changed a bit, haven't you? You're not doing domestic anymore over in Australia, so what are you doing now?
So I do mainly commercial, quite big commercial jobs, which is pretty good. It's a nice change. I thought if I'm going to go back to being employed, I may as well learn some new skills and just try something different, really.
Cool, yeah. So if we go right back to the start when we first landed in Australia, it feels like a distant memory away now. So you had, when you landed, there was training courses you had to go, because I remember coming to meet you in the city one day. You were in the city doing training courses and your gap training and stuff, so just talk through what you had to do there.
Yeah, so just as any tradesperson or anyone who wants to be on site, you have to do a white card. So I had to go do my white card licence, and then as a specific for electrical, you have to do CPR, low voltage rescue, and a first aid course. Okay,
cool. And then you did your gap training.
Yeah, so then so you have to do all that before you signed up for the gap training. Again, this is a bit different because it's like, depends what state you're in, it's all a bit different.
Yeah.
But so I signed up to do my gap. You have to get an employer, sign up for your gap training, and then you enroll to do all the exams and everything that leads up to going in to do your final exam to be qualified.
Okay, yeah. And so I'll start with how I found the gap training, and then we'll talk about like how you found the gap training, because I'm sure people will be watching this, probably got the partners watching it and stuff as well, and families, and I think the daunting part for the gap training was the cost. So for me it was kind of, we had to pay for that stint at college, which, how much was it? I want to say $5,000.
It was $7,500.
Yeah, so that was a big chunk of money. And then also, because you'd only just started working with your employer, you didn't have enough leave or anything to take. So it was 2 weeks unpaid leave on top of having to pay that. And yeah, that was on top of, we'd had 3 months beforehand where we couldn't work. So financially it was a bit difficult, but then it was so time consuming.
Yeah, it took a lot of time.
I know so much of it was difficult for you, but then for me I was like, I've just got to hold the fort here. Like, I just need to make sure that I'm like, you can come in from work, like I make your tea's ready on the table, and then you can just sit and just do your gap training. Like, I'll do bath time, bedtime, like just making sure everything around you is kind of all systems go, so you can just like sit and do your gap training. So it was very time consuming, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. It was hard, the fact that like coming home, wanting to be like enjoy the Australian lifestyle, but knowing that you had to do all these exams, and if you put them off it just prolongs the time period. But with this course I had a set amount of time to do the exams before I went to trade school, so it's kind of like it was good in a way because you had an end goal to get it finished on time.
Yes, the exams beforehand, because when you first got them through, we were like, oh, it's like 6 exams, like that's not too bad. Even though you have to get 100% on them, we were like, oh, that's not too bad. But then it was when you started clicking into them and it was exams within exams, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think in total it was over 100 exams I had to do to get 100%. Not all of them were sat down to do exams like in time limit, but you had to do the exams and still get 100% before you can move on to the next section.
It was so hard. And when you went to college, only two of you made it on the course, didn't you? Because nobody else had managed to complete the exams.
Yeah, so like I said, you have a certain period of time to get the exams done, and they enrolled five to six people, and then only 2 of us managed to get the exams done in time to then go sit the exams at college.
Because I imagine a lot of those people will have seen, oh, the 6 exams, like I'll just do that like a week or so before, but then it's impossible to do a week or so before. So yeah, I think like that will probably have happened to a lot of those people. But also like not to scare anyone, because I think I'm looking at you that like you know the answer, but I think that's changed now. The systems, like from what we've seen on Facebook groups and stuff, like I don't think it's the case where you have to do all of these exams anymore. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It might not be the case for you. Like just always look into it for like your area and things like that. But yeah, it's a lot, and I think no matter what the situation is, when you've got the gap training to do, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, like you said, I think it has changed. It's the reason we had to do that many exams was because the period I did my skills assessment to come over was the changing period of like the OTSR to then come over and do it.
Yeah, and then like the other thing with the gap training as well was until your gap training was complete, your wage wasn't going to go up. So we were kind of wanted to get that done quicker as possible as well, just to get your wage bumped up to normal wage as well, because I mean this is one of the questions, and I mean we could probably go into it a bit more in a minute, but we were desperate for that wage to go up as well, because we were struggling a little bit. So when it came to finding a job, how did you go about finding a job? Was it easy? What was the interviews like? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I found it quite easy. As soon as I got here, we wasn't allowed to work for 3 months, so I just looked on Seek, applied for a few jobs, applied for 3, got contacted back by 2, and then one of the ones they asked me to go for an interview. I went for an interview, got the job, and then I wasn't allowed to work for 3 months, so I just told him my start date, and then he was fine, just let me start whenever. So I got really lucky with like how quick and easy it was to find a job.
You have been really lucky with your employer, really, haven't you?
Yeah,
like
it's been
they've
really good.
So good. And I think that's probably like going over to the commercial side a little bit. I think there's probably, I mean, I'm saying this with no idea whatsoever, but there's probably a bit more money in it. It's a bit more bigger and a bit more organised. So like you just kind of get that extra level of like employment security being
really
with
good.
in the commercial side of things.
Yeah, it's been really good.
So I'll have a quick flick through the messages. So one of the messages that got asked a few times was, did you take your tools over from the UK, and is there anything you wished you took or didn't take, and vice versa? Are the tools mostly battery operated, or do you still use cable tools?
So I haven't seen one cable tool since I've been here, not like England, like they still have quite a lot. But yeah, I brought all my tools over because I went recently self-employed, so bought all new tools, so cost effectively it was like it was a lot better off shipping them than it was to like sell and then buy new. So yeah, I would always advise bringing them if they're new enough. If you've got old rundown tools, I'd probably just get new ones.
Yeah, that's good. So guys, quick break there because the battery went, so we just quickly had to plug it in. So we were just going into what the salary is like, and I know this is a really difficult one because it's so different based on so many different circumstances, and like where your work's based at, how close to the city you are, what kind of work you do. But I have seen a lot of people panicking recently that the tradie like rates here are not as much as they are back in England. And I think for a lot of people, they're self-employed in England and then they're coming over here, they're getting employed to do the gap training and all that kind of stuff, and they're like, oh well, the money's nothing compared to what I was on in England. But it's probably because they're going from self-employed to employed, whereas if they're going self-employed to self-employed, it will probably even out, if not be more here. But then again, it really depends on like the areas you're in and stuff. But like obviously, without saying what you're paid, like how have you found like the salaries from like maybe from going gap training, how it's increased, and what your knowledge is of the different sectors or areas.
Yeah, so I feel like with your gap training, it depends what your company wants to put you on, but you do get a lower amount, kind of like a TA, until you're qualified, or it's not even until you're qualified, it's until you prove yourself. Like, I was pretty lucky, like I got put on a low rate and then got a pay rise pretty quick after like showing like what you worth to the company and stuff like that. And if you put the work in, you'll get more money. But I was self-employed in England. I probably earned more in England than I do here, but that's because I was self-employed. When I was employed in England, I earned way more here than I did in England. So if your plan is to go self-employed, you're more likely to earn more money here than you would in England. Compared to
it's just sitting it out, isn't it? I think it's a bit of a long game. Like, you're not going to arrive and everything's going to be dreamy straight away. Like, you might have to take a step back a little bit. You're going to have to retrain. I can imagine people's egos maybe get like a little bit of a hit sometimes as well. Not saying that it did for you, but like, it can be hard going from being employed and having really successful, self-employed, having a really successful business, to then having to work for somebody getting paid TA rate. Like it's difficult, but in the long run, I think like it will even out over the time, and it's worth it. Like, taking that little bit of a hit.
It definitely is. Like, the company I work for, like, it was weird running my own business, telling people what to do all the time, and then you come here and then you have apprentices telling you what to do. It's a little bit strange, but it's just like anywhere you start new, you pick it up, and if you put the work in, it all works out.
Yeah. And whereabouts is your work based? Like, is it all mainly within the city, or is it around the suburbs as well?
Yeah, so it depends what work you do. Like, for us, we do quite a lot in the city, a lot of office fit outs and a lot of commercial jobs, but you do get sent a bit further afield, like out of the city, maybe a bit south, a bit north, but it just varies, mainly in the city base though.
I think if you're doing commercial, it's going to be around those big areas, isn't it, really? It's going to be in the cities. Maybe it's more suburbs if you're doing domestic, but let me see, what other questions have we got here? So work-life balance, what's like your start time, finish time, holidays, all that kind of stuff like?
So I'd say the work-life balance here is, for me personally, is a lot better. In England, I did mainly domestic. You could start from like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then you're not getting home, and then you're not finished until like 5:30. Whereas here, doing commercial, I'd start at 6:30 and finish at 3. So it depends where you live. I can be home and at the beach by 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So the work-life balance here and is just so much better for me.
And like the weather's nicer, so you finish work and like everything's packed ready to go, and we're like straight down the beach and just chilling there for the afternoon, and like half the time we'll take tea down with us and we'll do all that down the beach. So it kind of feels like you've got a whole afternoon after you finish work, so doesn't it? And the holidays are really good. So like you've got your RDOs, which are the rostered days off, and you get one of them a month.
Yeah, so I work an extra half an hour a day that I don't get paid for, but every 4 weeks I get an extra day off. So it works out an extra 13 days off a year. Some companies make you take the rostered days off one every month, but my company let you build them up and you can take them all at once or use it as extra holidays.
So being employed, you get the RDOs, which is like one every month pretty much that you earn. Good holidays, and then I think it's like 13 bank holidays you get off a year.
Yeah, there's quite a lot.
So I feel like also when you're looking at the salary and stuff, you should probably factor in all these benefits that you're getting as well, because on top of that you've got your super, which is the like pension here in Australia, and the employer contributes, is it 12 or 15%?
I don't know, I actually don't know.
It's a high percentage. I mean, it's way higher than it is back home, because I think back home it's like your employer, I think it's 3% is the minimum amount, whereas here it's around 12 or 15%, I think. So there's also something to take into consideration. And I think when we were talking about the pay, it's probably better to give a ballpark number, because I don't think we've actually given any figures. And I think when you were first arrived and you hadn't done your gap training or anything, I reckon it was between $30 and $40 an hour that you were looking at. And then once you're qualified as a qualified electrician, it's between like 40 and like $55 an hour. Is like the general rule. Like, there is companies, is it like tier 1 companies?
Yeah, tier 1 companies like
which are like the bigger companies, or like obviously there's lots of different routes and roles and different companies where you can earn more than that, but as like a general rule from what we've seen from like jobs being advertised and stuff, that's what we've seen.
Yeah.
And you also get your van with your job, don't you, as well?
Yeah, so I'd probably say around 45 to 55 is probably where the ballpark figure is. And yeah, you get a lot of benefits if you're working for like a company like the same size as mine. We have like 30 electricians, including apprentices. Like all tradesmen and electricians have vans. But when you go to like the bigger tier 1 companies, you don't necessarily get a van. You have to use your own vehicle, but you do get paid your travel. So it is still works out good.
And like, so the company that you work for, like you say, there's about 30 of yous, but at your office you've got a basketball hoop, beer fridges, you have barbecues, or like sometimes they'll put on breakfast for you and all sorts. So like that's a benefit which we never got back in the UK.
And one thing here, like on the most sites I've worked on, every couple of weeks they do a barbecue. Like the site managers run it, so then everyone gets barbecue. Everyone goes for like beers. Like it's just a lot more like friendly and like more enjoyable work-life balance, really.
Yeah, brings you all together a bit more. It makes sense, doesn't it, for team morale, like bringing you all together. And I know, like with you, like for your team, like when you're on a difficult job or a big job and there's a few of you, like on a Friday you'll just put a barbecue on for them, and like either you'll take our barbecue in, or sometimes some of the guys have they just pull them out in the back of the car, don't they, where it's all already like done in, and like everybody's got fridges and stuff. Like we've got a fridge in our car, so like all that's kind of just accessible and like easy to do there, isn't it?
It is.
What would you say you've noticed so with that, what are the biggest differences that you've seen from the UK to here?
I'd say the regulations are a little bit different and it takes a little bit of getting used to, but I feel like if you've trained up in England, the regulations here are so much more relaxed, so I feel like it's a lot easier to adapt here because everything's just more relaxed. And if you do the bare minimum here, you're probably going to be one of the better workers on site. I find everyone seems more relaxed and like they enjoy life more than like they are all it around work. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I tell you what, one of the biggest differences I've noticed are, I'm going to ask you to go get your shorts. Go and get your shorts. Because, so I'll say, when Liam, when we came, he brought over all of his work uniform from England, because he was like, there's no way I'm wearing these short shorts. I like my shorts, got my knee pads in, that he wears for work. And yeah, wait till you see what he's got now. There was like, one day you were like, I'm going to have to do it, it's too hot. Look at these little hot pants, and they're not the shortest ones that they do.
No.
So, yeah, you at first were like, there's no way I'm going to be wearing those, and now look at you. You're in your little hot pants, you've got the Aussie work boots as well.
I do.
Like, you're full Australian now. And like, part of your uniform is the big wide brim hat you had on today, isn't it? That's funny.
It is. Well, it's that hot, you want to be wearing as little as possible. So.
And how do you find working in the heat?
I feel like you get used to it. A lot of companies have hot work policies, so for example at my company, if it gets up to 35, they send you to they're supposed to send you to a job where it's got air conditioning, and then if it doesn't have air conditioning you have to have regular breaks and stay out of the sun, and then if it gets up to 37, if they can't send you to an air conditioned building, you get sent home with full pay. So they're pretty good at like keeping you cool, and yeah, it is hot, but you just get used to it. It's just
and they provide sun cream, all that kind of stuff, don't you? And like your uniform's just made out for it a little bit more, but it still gets hot. It's tiring. Like you do have to take regular breaks and make sure you're drinking a lot.
I'd much rather that than be working in the rain.
Yeah, I remember one time dropping you off a hot water bottle to try and warm you up when you was working outside on the ice skating rink.
Yeah. It's a lot nicer here.
Yeah, at least you can jump in the ocean afterwards.
Yeah.
Right, let me see, what have we got? Let's try fire through these last ones. So work vehicle, we've covered that. Is there any slang names or different names for things that you've struggled to say? I'm starting first because there's one that you keep saying at home, and I'm like, well, like, it just makes me, it's a little bit inside, and that is data.
Oh, yeah, it's been
data, and it's data.
It is.
But you
I
just
prefer
say
saying
data
data,
now.
but when I say data, most of the Australian people struggle to understand what I'm saying, so I just change it just so they can understand me. One thing was weird if you're going to be as a tradesman on a construction site is when I first started, he was like, right, we're going to go for a smoko, which I was like, we're going, I was like, I don't smoke, so I'll just stay here. But they all laughed at me because smoko means like you break, like a morning break, so that was one thing that threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, that is funny. I probably did arrive from like people saying smoking, but yeah, it's weird that's never changed. Is there anything like tool-wise or like actual kind of electrician terminology that's different?
I don't think so. I think everything's pretty similar. Like there is like the odd few things I can't think of off the top of my head, but you pick it up really easy when you're working.
Yeah, that's good. To be honest, I think that's pretty much all of the questions that we've been asked. So hopefully that was useful. Thank you, Liam, for doing this. I was telling Liam before, I actually got him his favourite caramel Tim Tams for doing this. And I've had them stashed away for ages because I was like, oh, when we eventually get round to doing this video, I'll get them out for him. And I've had them hidden under the bed. And then today I was in the shower and I was like, oh, I can get Liam's Tim Tams out for when we do the video tonight. Not realising today's the first day of Lent, and for some random reason you've decided to do Lent this year.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a few of you at work doing it, isn't there? So just for that reason, you're not able to have the caramel Tim Tams, so they're going to sit there for a little while longer. I've actually done so well avoiding them, and there's been a few times where you've been like, oh, I fancy something sweet, and I've been like, oh, I know the Tim Tams are there, but I'm saving them.
I'll just have to wait it out.
Yeah, so thank you anyway. Like, I appreciate it. I'm sure that'll have been so useful for people. And if anybody else does have any other questions or anything specific, just fire them over to me because, yeah, I'm always here. I'll always answer them. And yeah, I can answer things over on Instagram. And don't forget to sign up for my newsletter if you're not already, because that's where I'll always put the wealth of information. I'll share bits here and there on Instagram, but my newsletter is where you get all the detail, all the information, and sometimes a little bit of a brain dump from me, but it means you're getting the honest kind of reality of here living in Australia, which we love. We absolutely love it here, but it's difficult as well, isn't it? Like, there are some difficulties, so I'll share all of that with you in my newsletter. So yeah, please don't forget to sign up to that, and thank you very much, Liam. Let me know in the comments if you enjoy this charismatic guy being on the camera, because if so, we may rope him into doing some more, but I think I'm going to need your guys' encouragement for doing that.
We'll see.
Right, cheers. Bye!